Previously on Break to Cycles. We spent our New Year's in Ecuador's capital, Quito, and eventually made our way south afterwards. We made a few detour stops, Cotopaxi, the swing at the end of the world, and the Devil's Bathtub. After a few days, we eventually crossed over into Peru through a remote jungle border through La Balsa. We left San Ignacio the next day and continued our way towards Gocta waterfall. This is not a very well developed region, so most of the roads are dirt roads winding through the mountains. As we got closer towards town, there were some paved roads, but there were a lot of livestock in the road, so either the road wasn't traveled very much or there's a lot of farmland nearby. So the next day we actually went south first and then realized that we actually can't go east the way that we're going. So we ended up double back, which burned a ton of time when we tried to figure out where we're going. And then we went back to the main road that we turned off on and then went east and it ended in the town of Pedro Ruiz Gallo. Where we stayed the day before was only 30 minutes away from the town of Gocta, so we had a very casual day. We got out around noon and rode about 30 minutes to the town. Even then, it was a very, very narrow road in the mountains. You can see that there's horses hanging out on the road, and he was, I don't know, going back and forth. It made me super nervous. Like I didn't know if he was gonna like dart back the other way or get spooked. I mean, there was only so much room, right? So if he got spooked and then like charged at me, that would have been really ugly. But we got through. When we arrived at the town of Gokta, there was a very small town in the entrance, and there was some hostels, there's restaurants, and they're all in various state of disrepair. We decided to just kind of hang out in the courtyards for the day because we got there in the afternoon, but like not like super early afternoon, and the waterfall could take at minimum 2 hours each way, minimum. And we didn't want to be stuck hiking in the dark for like 2 hours trying to come out. So the next morning, we got up very early and headed onto the trail towards Gata Waterfall. Now, Gata is considered the third largest waterfall in the world by height. And it was a pretty neat find. And we kind of only decided this right before we crossed the border through Ecuador. And we're like, oh, hey, this is something cool. We should go see it. And it was a great find. The hike is very strenuous at 6.8 miles and with the elevation of 8,000 feet above the sea level, and there was a lot of up and down. So it was a moderate hike. And almost immediately though, when we got on like we got out and we started going on the trail, almost immediately there was like these village dogs and there was a husky. He started following us straight onto the trail. He was super excited to tag along for the hike, super friendly, and he never left our side the entire trip. You can see as we got through like to the entrance how far the waterfall was in the beginning, and then eventually like about an hour and a half later we got closer and then another hour and a half later and we finally arrived at the base of the waterfall.
Hey, so we finally made it over here. We are finally here at the Gotcha waterfall. This is actually half of the waterfall. The other half is on the top. It's pretty impressive. I mean, it's different than other waterfalls because you can actually like pretty much walk up to the bottom of it. Like all the other gigantic waterfalls, you can only see it from afar because they're so big. This one like kind of trickles down to a mist in the bottom. It's kind of cool that you can walk straight into it. Here we go.
We decided not to take a swim there, and there are people that were taking a dip or a swim, but it was very cold. Like the temperature was freezing, the water is even freezing. um we took some photo with our four-legged friend companion, and we took some amazing scenic shots of this valley where the waterfall is coming down, and we took our slow back trek to town. When we got back to town, it was already early afternoon, and after having some lunch, we packed our belongings and head south for about an hour to the town of Chachapoya, and then we took lodging there. The road coming to town was surprisingly well paved and very scenic. kind of remind me of like the Million Dollar Highway in Colorado. And we arrived without any incident mid afternoon. The following morning, we headed towards Kuelap. Kuelap is a pre Inca fortified city built by the Chachapoya civilization or the Cloud Warriors around 500 to 600 AD, which is around like 1,500 years ago. Yes, it's the same name of the town we just stated the day prior. To give you more of a context, one of the seven wonders of the world, Machu Picchu, also in Peru, is about 700 to 1,000 years after Kuelap was built. So the road to Kuelap was pretty rough. I mean, it is unpaved, poorly maintained gravel road. However, it wasn't unmanageable to up until about halfway up. So about halfway point, the road kind of just disappeared and turned super muddy. Now, I did not ride into the mud to see it. I just kind of was riding along and then I saw that the road forward was just all mud. And I was like, there's no way I'm gonna keep riding through with two up or gear on their way. So we stopped, we started looking for places to park, and I was thinking about just like wussing out about this because I already just did the hike in Gocta, and this one proves to be equally as long and probably a lot higher in elevation and a lot tougher because it's super muddy. So as we were looking around where to park, and we literally looked to the right of us, and we like somehow missed passing all these people standing there, and then all these Sherpas standing there with horses. So we found out that this is like they'll take you up the trail while you're on the horseback. And not only did this make our life super easy for just a few bucks, it simultaneously emasculated the heck out of me because these are super old ladies and they're trekking up, and this is about 10,000 feet of elevation, and they're trekking up this like super steep hill, like into the mud, and then pulling us all the way up to Kulap. So after about 20 minutes, we finally arrived at the ruin area, and they even have platforms for you to dismount the horses. I mean, it doesn't get easier than this. The ruin is absolutely immaculately preserved for the time it was built. The stone structures, you can still recognize a ton of the stone structure with the rings on the ground, but there were still tons of buildings that had walls up or partial the walls up. And the main wall structure of the fortress you can see from the outside. It's like 2 or 3 stories tall of stone structure. Very, very, very impressive. And it just looked kind of like out of like some movie fantasy novel with this like prehistoric thing. Like it's quite amazing. As I was walking through the ruins, a random family came up to me. Like I was literally walking through, like almost immediately as I enter after the gate, this this Peruvian family came by and was like, "Hey, can you take a photo with us?" It was so weird because they like it felt like I was like some celebrity. Like I guess they don't get a lot of Asian people around here, but it was so bizarre. Like, and then we took a photo, and of course I kept going, but it was still really odd. But this there's so many cool things in Kulab. There's the narrow stone corridors, the 2 story tall, and the walls. There is all these like buildings that you're kind of like trying to figure out what they were before. I mean, it was such a like blast to the past kind of feeling, and then the location and the environment just like really made it like such a good spot, right? And afterwards we spent about 2 hours around the ruin, and then we descended the same way via the Sherpa and the horses. Finally we got on my bike and rode south to the town of Layabamba to take lodging. After visiting Gocta and Kula, we started making our way to the coast and headed towards Lima. The main reason we wanted to go to Lima was to check out the Dakar Rally, which happened to be conveniently held in Lima, Peru that year. The additional perk was that there was this motorcycle tire store called the Big Trail Peru that actually had the tire for my bike, and they are new tires, right? So as we started heading west towards the coast, we actually ended up getting stuck due to some road work. And this was like very early part of the day. This is before even noon, and we literally just like stopped at this roadwork block in front of this person's house. And then after about 10 minutes, like everybody in the car as well as us, we like turn our engine off, and then we're just like sitting there. We're like, okay, and we'll just start chatting. Everybody start chatting, and just so happens they also speak English. Now, one of the kids from the house came out and looked at us. I mean, he looked like age wise, like 8, maybe 10 years max, but he looked like he was going on 45. Like this, the serious look on his face, his like body posture, it was just too funny. Little did we know that this was going to be a epic 2 hour wait, and we were there watching cows go by, farmers go by, and like nothing happened. And once we started going, we were it's totally ruined our plan. Like we couldn't go very far that day, right? But we tried to go quickly as we left, and then the road condition didn't allow it. For one, we were over 10,000 feet in elevation, and second, the roads, as you can see, are 1.5 lane wide at most, and this is like a two-way road, meaning that there's traffic coming the other way. And you see how narrow it is. Never mind the sheer drop off the right. There's also a ton of blind corners where you cannot see if someone's coming the other way. They don't even have mirrors up so that you can see the turn corner. It is very unsafe. Very, very unsafe. We did not make it very far before we had to look for lodging, and then we ended in the town of Siladine, which is also around 10,000 feet of elevation. The following day, we took a short trip to Cajamarca, passing through more mountain passes like the day before. Unfortunately, today there was big trucks in front of us, and they were ridiculously slow, like absolutely ridiculously slow, and we were just painfully going behind them. But the crazy part is we get to, of course, the traffic showdown, right? What is the traffic showdown? Is when there's traffic coming on the other way, and you have to scoot by each other, and there is no room whatsoever. I mean, we're talking like their tire is almost, if not on the edge of the cliff, and the guys have to back up to find a section that was wider so they can pass, because a lot of these sections are just too narrow. So they back up, they get to this section, and then literally everybody gets out of the car so that they don't overweigh the vehicle in case like the edge of the road collapses for the car that's sitting on the outside. This was wild. Okay, good thing I'm on the bike, and then we kind of just scoot around behind it, but still, this was wild. There are so many roads that it's super narrow, as you can see going up here. Like, I don't even know what I would do if a vehicle comes by. You kind of have to look ahead and see what's up there, and then you have to kind of remember also what's behind you that was wider as you continuously ride, so you know where to back up to. I mean, this was just an absolute ridiculous like setup. You just have to go along with it, right? And luckily, there wasn't that many traffic in Mountain Pass, and we got to the town of Cajamarca. The following day, we made it out of the mountains and started to head down the coast. This was not good news because immediately when we got onto the Pan American Highway, and I kid you not, immediately about like 20 minutes we got onto the Pan American Highway, there was a police checkpoint, or should I call it a scam point. The officer immediately flagged me down and told me to pull over, and then I got to the side, and then he told me my headlight wasn't on, and the headlight needs to be on at all times. So I walked to the front of the bike and pointed to the light, and it was on. He just shrugged and said he wanted $80, or he would have to take me to the station and figure it out. Absolute common thuggery. I looked at him and was like, fuck you, man. Piece of shit. However, I'd rather just keep moving because it was dawn and I do not want to ride in the dark in the middle of nowhere. And he knew that. So this is literally just a shakedown. So I started negotiating back and forth with this guy. He eventually settled $20 and let me go. And then afterwards, he like goes to the front of my bike in front of all his colleagues and then give me a thumbs up when the bike turned on and the light was on. I was like, duh, it was on before too, right? I mean, it was just the shamelessness is absolutely retarded. But we took off and we took lodging. The next day was a travel day, and we left Trujillo pretty early, and we rode south to a large section of desert road all the way to Barranca. Now, I didn't capture it in the photo, but the amount of trash blowing around in the desert by the ocean in northern Peru made me question whether or not the whole entire recycling effort of the entire world is even relevant. There was so much trash on the Peruvian coastline. You see more trash than ocean when you stare out into the ocean. Like, it was disgusting. Next day, I arrived in Lima and headed straight to Big Trail Peru for the tire. I was expecting this place to be like this huge dealership because they carry all these big name tires, premium brands, and they're new. You don't find any of the stuff in almost all of these tire shops. You don't find these, right? So I thought it was going to be a big store, and when I arrived, I was shocked. It was not only it was small, it was like a tiny small car wash size, and it was like under a tent. It wasn't even like a permanent structure, but the staff was very professional. They had the tire I need, and they were super nice. And we got on our way once I got my tire and headed down to our couch surfer. The following day in Lima, we headed back north towards the ocean front to see the Dakar Rally. Now, it was quite the sight to see. I mean, almost all the bikes that I saw was KTM. I mean, there was a sprinkling of Hondas and other brands, but man, it was mostly KTMs. The speed at which the participants are riding in the sand can only be described as terrifyingly inhuman, because I don't know how that's even possible to ride that fast. And even if it was, like, I don't want to be crashing at that speed. I mean, that just looks very painful. So we watched around for about an hour, bought some hats for memorabilia, and then head back to the couch surfing host. The next day, we headed south to Huacachina. Now, Huacachina is literally a desert oasis. Now, you have the town center that circles the huge lake in the middle of the desert, and then you have activities that you can do like ATV, sand surfing. The problem was that it kind of rained the morning before, so the sand was super packed down, and you can't really surf on really hard packed sand. Anyways, we were already there, so we just, rented some surfboards and then we gave it a try. It was an absolute fail. We had an okay time, but it was cool. Next time, I rode through a river to get to Machu Picchu and got caught in a snowstorm leaving Peru.